It is Monday, June 18th, 2018, and this is the Monday Morning Analyst. Welcome, everyone. My name is Luke Thomas. I'm the host of this podcast. Thank you so much for watching. Hope you're doing well. Well, there wasn't a lot of action over the weekend or even really the past week. There were some notable events that happened. Tenshin Nasukawa had a very interesting fight. Cage Warriors 94, some actually pretty good finishes. Nice anaconda choke. Good liver shot finish there as well, or pretty close to a finish anyway. So there were some fun things to look at, but if I'm just thinking about newsworthy things that we could maybe digest a little bit more on this podcast, you have to go to Dana White's Tuesday Night Contender series. Former NFL All-Pro Greg Hardy getting out there, and for better or for worse, depending on your perspective, making it happen. So I realize he's a controversial figure. I want to discuss that just a little bit, and I wanted to figure out with this video, what do we know about Greg Hardy from what the video tells us? I know the fight was only about 57 seconds or so. Can we take anything from that? The answer is yes. The answer is no. Let's watch a little bit of that footage, parse out what we can determine, and figure out what can we really say about him as a potential prospect, as a person, and a whole lot more. Now, first things first, about him as a person. Yeah, I'll be honest with you. I really don't know how to cover Greg Hardy because, on the one hand, somebody who is an athlete as exciting as he is impossible to not be intrigued by. On the other hand, I realize that his background is, to call it controversial, is actually maybe even doing it a disservice. It is reprehensible. On another hand, even if he did those things, to what extent is he entitled to some form of redemption? On the other hand, even if he is entitled to some form of redemption, it would be only under specific actions that he's taken. What everyone thinks about Michael Vick, at least Michael Vick went through the acts of trying to speak out against animal cruelty and in support of animals. He did go to jail, right? And maybe that's not sufficient for you, but he did those things. To my knowledge, Greg Hardy has not done anything. So to what extent he's entitled to your sympathies is really a very difficult question. I would say probably not much from what he's done so far. I guess we'll have to see, or maybe not at all, right? I mean, I can really understand a variety of perspectives here. But this podcast really typically does not delve too much into those questions, and nor am I going to do that here. I struggled and really second-guessed whether or not I want to put him on this, but at the same time, it's just a more interesting question, irrespective all of that controversy, when you have somebody like this. You don't, in America, often get an athlete still this young for that division, 29 in heavyweight, is still pretty young, who is this good. We've seen a lot of guys wash out of the NFL and then have very successful careers inside mixed martial arts. And to be clear, doing well in MMA is much more than a function of athleticism, but athleticism can play a really big part for a lot of reasons. It can aid you in how you want to fight, obviously, and it can aid development more quickly, which is one thing you're going to see when we look at some of this footage. It's just super rare, and he's only here because of that controversial background and his own bad choices that he made. So it's just this weird opportunity to watch someone in our sport at that weight class that you normally don't get. You could make a really good argument, if there was no other sport in the world but MMA, what would be the best division in terms of fights in the world? Heavyweight could make a pretty compelling case, couldn't it? Right? You see guys like this, who was elite of the elite in the NFL for a time. They don't come around here too often. So to say we just can't talk about him, I would understand that completely. But for the purposes of this podcast, I actually do. I want to see what he looks like on footage, and I want to see what we can figure out from there. So that's the first thing I'd say about it. The second thing I'd say is, there are some things we can figure out here, and there are a lot of things that we can't, right? And here's what we can't. For example, he was out of breath when he spoke to Lorisenko after a 57-second fight. Does that mean he has bad cardio? Maybe. Football players typically don't have great, long-lasting marathon-style cardio. Or it could be that he was really excited. Or it could be that he has maybe bad cardio now, but it can be good cardio later. Or it could be he hasn't learned proper breathing techniques, so he actually does have good cardio now, he just can't show it. There could be a lot of reasons, and we really just have no way of knowing. So that's one thing I would just say, I don't know. I don't really want to draw any kind of firm conclusion. But because it hasn't been tested, because he hasn't shown he can go 10, 15 minutes, right, and really keep up a high level of occupational skill, it's just an unknown. It's not a yes, it's not a no, it's just a not yet something that's clear to us. So things like that I want to be very, very careful about. And also, at 29, for a guy who's getting better quite rapidly, there's also something to be said for however good or bad he looked here. I would expect a substantive change by the time he comes back out the next time. How well does he take punishment? No one's really put it on him, so we don't know. How good is his wrestling? He's never really had to use it, so we really don't know. How good is his jiu-jitsu such that he needs it? No one's really forced him to use it, so we really don't know. There's just a lot of really great and serious unknowns here. And when I say great, I mean in scope, that we just can't answer. But there are some things, aside from those issues, when you look at this tape, you can begin to get at least some details of a picture of his game and what he's good at, and some things to pay attention to as he gets better and develops. So let's do that now. All right, I'm going to make us watch this here in slow motion. You can see they're circling the outside. Greg Hardy's there in the center. I'm going to stop it for just a minute. And you have Austen Lane on the outside. I took out the eye poke. I don't know that we can really glean anything from that. Maybe he's a dirty fighter. Maybe he's not. Really, there's just no way to know. So I took that out and some of the other sort of non-essentials here. And I kind of want to watch this in slow motion. I really feel like if you watch fights in full speed, you can miss a lot, even if you have a very expert eye. I do not have an expert eye, so I really rely upon the slowing down, and I want to see what we can see. Here's what I really noticed to me. Footwork, it's interesting. It's not quite smooth, but you're going to notice his balance is actually pretty good, right? You're going to notice that he gets in and out of space really well, both in terms of the speed of entering and exiting a pocket, as well as keeping balance the whole time. So let's watch this here a little bit as we go on. You can see he's taking center, bringing his feet together, but he doesn't rely on his jab because he doesn't have much of one. So you see he goes to sort of set up, bounces back out. He has this weird habit of overcommitting because you could tell he loves to get after it. He has this habit of overcommitting then having to get back out. And on the one hand, it shows that he has the ability to do it on occasion. On the other hand, you can see Austen Lane here almost timed a couple of shots from him coming in. So something to pay attention to as he goes forward. But here we are. Backing up, and you can see he just kind of lets his footwork go a little bit and then throws the right, but then backs out and stays out of it. So it's a little bit of both here. He follows through, and you can see because he just constantly pressures forward, Lane tries this stance switch again and charges forward on his own. Greg Hardy, I'll say, does a pretty good job of keeping his eyes downfield. Let's go back and watch that a little bit more. All right, let's see here. All right, so here he is in the southpaw stance, switches to he stays southpaw a little bit, but you'll see he switches later, and he kind of just barrels forward. Greg Hardy kind of tries to punch his way out, and you see from here, he has to kind of just bounce out of the way to recenter himself, but once he does, he's usually in pretty good shape. So this where my lesson there was he kind of overcommits constantly, coming in straight a lot, and so guys can time him and back him up. Plus, he backs out straight a little bit. That's something to work on. But when he can reset himself, when he can really compose himself again, he's got pretty good balance. So good and bad there. All right. Left hand's a little low for me, but because of his speed advantage, I don't really worry too much about it. So Lane was trying several different stances, which I think in the end actually ended up costing him. By the way, look at this. Here's again a mistake he's going to make. You're going to see him come straight in, but look how limber he is. Look at that, pretty incredible. But the problem is, what it ends up doing is it ends up switching his stance. He doesn't know what to do, so he stands kind of square for a second. Not good. Overcommits positionally, and then has to rotate out. So that wasn't that great. I appreciate how limber and athletic he is, but that was a strategic error in my judgment. And Lane almost got him for it. And by the way, there was a bit of an eye poke there, so we're going to skip that. And here we are. They restart after the eye poke. And again, what lesson can you infer from the eye poke? I don't really know. Jabs his way in, kind of closes his eyes a little bit, but I like how he jabs and he lands and he doesn't just dive through. He'll swing out of the pocket if someone pressures him, but he's pretty good about sticking behind the jab and then throwing the two behind it. Right? Now here he's backing up straight when Lane double jabs and then tries to throw the hook. And I don't mind that uppercut, but you can see a little bit off balance when he throws it. Yeah, like he's kind of leaning too far over. He kind of overcompensates to his opposite side. See that? And it's got him leaning a little bit. So just some punch mechanics there that need to be sharpened up a little bit. Crossing his feet a little bit too, kind of. But here he is, back on it. Nice long jab. Boom. Comes over the top. And look how he turns his shoulders and his hips over. Right? Watch him here. Boom. Hips aren't quite fully rotated, but the shoulders are for the most part. I like how he keeps center of the octagon. He doesn't chase along the fence line. That's good from him. And there he goes. He steps in again. Now, Lane does it too, but Lane's anticipating him coming in and tries to meet him again. This is something he's going to have to work on. He's coming in and he's jabbing his way in, which is great, but he's not setting everything up with the jab. He's not faking. He's not feinting. He's not flashing one way and then coming the next. He just kind of barrels forward, and he's almost getting timed in the process. But this is what I like about this, right? Watch how quickly he spins and keeps his balance. And then just turns, faces, and gets out. And throws an uppercut on the way out, too. He loves that kind of shovel punch uppercut from the right side on the way out. If you watch that in real time, you'll see how... Let's watch it in real time. You'll see how quick it is. For a big guy. And by the way, Austen Lane's another quick guy, right? Watch how fast this is. I mean, quick. Lightning quick for a guy this size. So here they are. They're both in that orthodox stance. Lane tries what appears to be like a question mark kick, but he didn't have his balance under him. Hardy retreats. I like that, bouncing on his feet when he does it. Comes in with a wide hook, but let's see, does he set it up? Hard to see from this angle. Steps in. Oh, you know what? He kind of comes in and then comes around. A little bit like Jimmy Manoa. He gets kind of caught there a little bit, right? Watch. He comes down. Here's what he does. He comes down and then on top. So he goes down and then up and then doesn't really know what to do and kind of stands there. But he watches, so it's not so bad, right? And this is the beginning of the end here. If you're Austen Lane. So Austen Lane is in the south. They're both in the orthodox stance. Greg Hardy comes up, comes high, right? And he turns, gets his back along the fence, switches to southpaw here, and this is his mistake. So now he's in the opposite stance, and I think he's trying to confuse Greg Hardy, but Greg Hardy's not all that confused. Comes in, you see, there it is again, right? Fakes low, fakes high, or comes high, fakes low, comes high. And then he gets a little bit too collapsed in that pocket again. It's one of the things he's going to have to work on, but he bounces out. Lane stays in this southpaw position and kind of throws, and then doesn't really... If you're going to change direction like that, you're going to change stances, and you're going to throw, you have to dart and keep moving, or you got to circle and come out to the other side. You have to keep moving. He kind of just does that. Hardy, as I told you before, sometimes he can overcommit in a linear way, but a lot of times in the pocket he can bounce in and bounce out. Watch him here. Puts an arm up, bounces out, measures. We're going to watch the final strike here. But look how he's on his feet here. Bounces, measures, bing. He just kind of gives him the angle like this. They're at almost a perpendicular angle here from Lane. What, right? It's kind of wild. They're striking here in this space. Lane's backed up. And I appreciate the stance switch. He kind of lowers, right? He kind of lowers and then comes over the top to switch, misses. But because he'd been measured the whole time, he doesn't keep going. He just kind of stops, boom, and gets cracked. You know, he'd have to come in and switch twice or clinch up, missing here. You got to get out of the way. Immediately, you got to get out of the way. Boom. And it's too late before he recognizes anything. He gets popped. Watch Greg Hardy's body after he pops him here. Watch. Bink. Look at that. It's a subtle little move, but it's right because it allows him to step out of any danger, reevaluate, make a calculation, and then come in and close the show with a left hook, which is also, by the way, not automatic. He thought through that process. A lot of beginners come in to land a punch, even if the person is not in an optimal angle afterwards, they'll throw the exact same punch. So here we are. So watch this from another angle, right? So here's Lane, kind of jabs, ducks, tries to come over like that, doesn't, just kind of keeps going. There's not enough movement there. He doesn't really commit to it. He doesn't stop and then roll under and turn. Nothing. Boom, and eats it. And look at the mechanics on that punch, man. Not bad from Greg Hardy. Still a little bit, not exactly super centered. He's leaning, but boom. And then watch this. Watch his feet. So he's in here reaching, protecting himself. Lane never had a chance. Lane's trying to come in and do all these tricks. I'm going to go high. I'm going to go low. I'm going to switch stances. Hardy's just got a hand on him the whole time watching. Watch Hardy land his punch and then bounce out. Bang. And then watch. Doesn't sit around and, admire his work. Recoils, resets, and then goes. And then throws. You see, he almost throws the right and realizes he can't. decides not to, and then just fires the left and sits him down. Watch it from one more angle here. Let's see. Here he is again. Hardy minding his distance, staying good on good balance. The guy misses, sees an opportunity, gets all the way over. Shoulder in front of the jaw. Look at that. Boom. His own shoulder, like that. Coming all the way over, yeah? Bounces out. Subtle bounces out. Recognize it. Pulls the right, and then throws the left. That pulling of the right and then throwing the left, I'm not telling you this is Anderson Silva level striking. That's not what I'm saying. But you guys, if you ever watch beginners, again, if they landed a big right, they'd see somebody get hurt, and they would just keep throwing on the same side. Or they'll just blitz kind of like crazy. You see him recognize, I want to throw it again. I'm going to pull, bang, and then he goes to the other side. It's good shot selection, good awareness. It tells you he's thinking through the kind of problem there. Pulls it, and then just bangs him out on the left side. So I got to say, look, whatever your feelings about him as a character, there are a couple lessons to draw here. Number one, obviously he has good power. 2, his balance is very good. 3, speed is excellent. 4, on the bad side, he does seem to keep just walking in. He does have a jab, which is nice, but the jab isn't really set up all that well. He did have that one trick where he goes low and then goes high. You saw that when he was pressuring Lane against the fence. But he has to kind of work on that because he's overcommitting into the pocket and then having to fight his way back out of it. He does tend to back out straight. That's a bit of a problem for him as well, although his speed is going to help him there. But he has a willingness to go first. That you have to admire. He does a pretty good job cage cutting, so he doesn't follow along the fence line. He actually kind of resets in the center of the cage. He, as I mentioned, he's offensively proactive. He does try to work behind his jab. He doesn't just throw a right hand and then throw an uppercut and then throw a right hand. There is a little bit of work behind it. Footwork can be a bit of an issue. He likes to throw to break a clinch at times or when a clinch is breaking, and that can sometimes offset his balance. So he's got some work to do on setting up his entries, on working on his exits, but the natural athleticism and the balance and constructing a striking game off of that proper footwork, off of that real good shoulder rotation, off of that shot selection, you can see the beginnings of that tree coming to life already. Those guys at American Top Team, Dean Thomas and the rest of them, they clearly know what they're doing. They clearly have got something here with Greg Hardy. So is his cardio good? I don't know. How's his wrestling? We're going to have to find out. Is his striking good? It's on its way for a prospect, particularly this division. You saw some of the good things. You saw the power. You saw the balance. You saw the shot selection. You saw the awareness, but you saw the overcommitting positionally. You saw the linear retraction. You didn't see a lot of sophisticated setups with the jab. A lot of those things need some work. So what can we say about him? As a prospect, that's interesting, but there's a lot more work to do. We'll see what happens. Last but not least, we'll take a look at what's coming up in the week ahead. Here we're going to have, let's see, on Saturday, June 23rd, we'll have at the Singapore Indoor Stadium at, I guess, Kelang, Singapore? Kelang? Forgive my pronunciation. I do not know how that is pronounced. In your main event, Don Cerrone takes on Leon Edwards at a welterweight clash. Ovince St. Preux is back against Tyson Pedro. Jessica Rose Clark versus Jessica Ai. Then you're going to have Li Jianlang versus Daichi Abe. This will be on Fight Pass. Then you go to the Fight Pass portion of the preliminary card. Teruto Ishihara is back against Peter Yan. Felipe Aranches taking on Song Yadong. Rolando Dai versus Shane Young. Song Keenan versus Hector Aldana. Shinsho Anzai taking on Jake Matthews. Yang Xiangnang versus Viviane Pereira. Matt Schnell returns to action against Naoki Inoue. And then Janelle Lausa taking on Oka Sasaki. That, of course, entire card will be on UFC Fight Pass. All right? So there we are. What did I get right? What did I get wrong? What'd you like? What'd you hate? Shoot me an email. LukeThomasNews@gmail.com. Thank you guys so much for watching. Until next time, enjoy the fights.